Hi, this is my first keynote, so I'm a little nervous. I get excited when I'm invited to these kind of type of events, but then regret it when I need to prepare, especially when it's past midnight the night before, and I still don't know what I'm going to say. I basically consider these opportunities to organize my thoughts, and then I get to test them out on you. To help you follow along, this is the introduction. It'll go on for about 3 minutes. Then I will talk about development finance for about 3 minutes. Then I will talk about mobilizing private capital, the limitations of finance, and wrap up. In total, 10 minutes is what they've given me. I am the Ag Finance Team Lead at USAID, but my background is finance, not agriculture. I'm new to government, and I'm only getting up the learning curve for climate change. So why am I the one speaking to you here today? I can guess a couple reasons. As I've gotten older, I've surprisingly developed a lot of opinions. I've always asked questions because I'm curious, but I've never questioned why I'm doing the job I was hired for. Now I constantly question what I'm doing and what we as an organization are doing. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I like my job, but I think somebody should be asking those questions, especially when we are trying to address such big issues. I believe in climate change, but it seems so distant. I worry about the world we will leave for our children. I wonder if I should become a prepper and buy a cabin in the woods. But while people at my job talk about the transformation needed, little has transformed about my personal life and habits. I don't have an electric car. I bike to work for the exercise and because I hate traffic, not because I'm worried about my combustion engine. There are no solar panels on our roof. We have not changed our Amazon buying habits. I checked last night and we made 40 Amazon orders in the last 3 months, which is on average one delivery every 2.25 days. Where do I sit at USAID? This is important. I am not what they call the front office or what folks in the private sector would call senior management. That means I am sharing my own personal views and opinions, not the position of the agency. If I was more senior, first of all, I would not have written my own speech. Second, the speech itself would have been cleared by multiple people so that in the end, I think it would have been less about what the person speaking actually thinks and more about just what they're allowed to say. If you want to know our official position on things, I suggest you read our climate strategy or the US government global food security strategy, both which you can find online. When I was young, I wanted to change the world. Then I grew out of it. And now it's come full circle. I'm working somewhere that keeps telling me we need to change the world. So today I'm here to talk to you about how I feel about that. What is development finance? One way to think about it is to compare USAID, a development organization, with a development finance corporation, a development finance institution. USAID, where I work, is fundamentally a donor. We spent $23 billion in fiscal year 21, with 3/4 of that money going to health, humanitarian assistance, and our local missions because we are a decentralized organization. I'm based in DC. The Development Finance Corporation, or the DFC, is fundamentally a finance institution. In fiscal year 21, the DFC made $162 million in net income on a total exposure of $32.8 billion, which I assume means loans, investments, guarantees, and insurance. What kind of financial return does USAID make? 0%? Less. We make negative 100%. Why? Because we think for that money we are getting something, social impact. The DFC makes a slightly positive financial return. That is, it gets all its money back plus a little more. There's something called the Returned Continuum developed by Omidyar in response to the debate about whether there's a trade-off between social impact and financial returns. While USAID and the DFC are both development organizations, USAID is firmly in the maximize social impact category. While the DFC, their model is more similar to other commercial investors than it is to donors like USAID. So what? Commercial investments which prioritize a financial return to private investors are able to scale, while non-commercial investments which create a public good will be more dependent on grants and be more difficult to scale. So my question is, in which category do you think inclusive finance for livelihood adaptation fits? So why are we trying to mobilize private capital? The way the thinking goes, we need so much money to address climate change that the only place we can find enough of it is in the private sector. We should spend our limited resources to crowd that money in, and once enough money has been invested, our problems will be solved. So what's the issue? I disagree. Large solar panel projects might generate enough of a return to attract institutional commercial investors, but most adaptation projects that help the most vulnerable likely do not. They would likely require grant funding. Sure, we could use our little grant funding to crowd in more commercial capital, but likely would not be able to do that at scale. If the impact of finance is so limited, why do we do it? Why do I do it? We get excited about private sector approaches. Exhibit A, microfinance. We don't like supporting activities that require continuous subsidy. Well, the private sector does a lot of great things, but it is also creating the mess that we are in. To think that the private sector can solve these problems on its own, in my opinion, is unrealistic. Of course, they're just following the rules that exist. So in other words, I think before anything can change, our rules need to change. More simply, we can crowd in money, a lot of money, to do good, a lot of good, but there will still be too much money invested in things causing the problems. I'm not trying to say to stop what we're doing. We need to keep doing it and more, but I see a different reason and end game. We do it so we have a roadmap for when governments are ready to put in place the rules, policies, regulations, and laws that we need. So what's my point? I just want to change the narrative a little. When I think about adaptation for livelihoods, I'm not talking about transforming anything. I'm talking about helping communities cope until we are able to get our shit together. Sorry for my French, but I don't think any kids will be watching this. There are communities where inclusive finance may mean using our scarce grant dollars to leverage in a little more investment capital, but nothing nearing scaling institutional capital. And what difference would scaling institutional capital make anyways? Even if tomorrow all the money in the world was ESG, I don't think that would change our ultimate trajectory on its own. So what are my closing thoughts? Just three things. One, mobilize more private capital, even though it's incremental. Two, the end game is policy, which is transformational. And three, above all, please keep all doing the work you're doing. Thank you.